The galaxy was quiet. For hundreds of years there had been no great wars, no battles in the stars, no empires burning for power. The old times of destruction were long gone. Civilizations had learned that war only brought loss. Among them, humanity was known as the greatest symbol of peace. Humans had once been warriors. Their history spoke of terrible wars that had nearly destroyed their home world. But they survived, learned, and changed. Over many centuries, they became teachers, healers, and explorers. Now, wherever they went, they brought peace and understanding. Their ships carried doctors, diplomats, and scientists, not soldiers. Ambassador Lyra Tavan of the Valari Dominion had always admired humans. The Valari were graceful beings of silver skin and long, luminous eyes. They valued beauty and harmony, and they saw in humanity a reflection of their own ideals. To Lyra, humans were gentle dreamers, clever, emotional, and kind. They had forgotten war, she thought, and that made them pure. Lyra served as the chief diplomat aboard the Valari flagship Radiant Song. Her ship patrolled the edge of known space, near the borders of the Dravik hordes, a species feared by all peaceful nations. The Dravik were large-scaled beings with a history of conquering weaker worlds. For decades they had been silent, nursing their strength. Now reports came that their fleets were moving again. The Valari Dominion could not face the Dravik alone, so Lyra was ordered to contact their allies, the Human Confederacy. The humans had a long friendship with the Valari, helping them in trade, medicine, and science. But this was different. This was about war, something humans no longer practiced. Still, she sent the message. It was simple. We face a great threat. We asked for help as friends. Days passed. Lyra waited anxiously, expecting a fleet or at least a small defense unit. Instead, when the human ship arrived, it carried only one person. The man who stepped out looked unremarkable. Tall, lean, wearing a simple gray uniform with no marks of rank. His eyes were a calm silver gray, his hair dark and short. He carried no visible weapon, no armor, nothing that looked like military gear. His face was calm, almost peaceful, and his voice quiet when he spoke. Commander Elias Vance, he said politely. Human Confederacy Strategic Relations Division. Lyra stared, unsure if she heard correctly. One human? She asked softly, trying not to sound rude. Our fleet is facing a possible invasion, Commander. Did your people not understand the situation? Elias gave a faint smile, the kind that hid many thoughts. They understood, he replied. I am here to assist. Lyra exchanged confused glances with her officers. How could one human assist against a Dravik fleet? Still, she decided to remain respectful. The humans were allies, after all, and perhaps this man had diplomatic purpose. She offered him a place in the observation deck where the star maps were displayed. The galactic horizon stretched before them like a painted sea of light. Elias stood there for a long time, silently watching the distant constellations. Finally, Lyra asked, Do your people still remember how to fight? I mean, no offense, Commander, but it has been centuries since humanity raised a weapon. Elias looked at her gently. You're right. We haven't fought for a long time, but we remember what it cost us. That is why we value peace so deeply. Lyra smiled faintly. Then perhaps it is good that humans forgot war. Maybe the galaxy can learn from you. But Elias's expression did not change. He only said softly, Forgotten? No, we just chose not to use it again, unless there is no other way. Before Lyra could ask what he meant, a sharp alarm rang through the command deck. One of her officers shouted, Dravik ships detected, 5 vessels entering the system. The Valari crew began to move quickly. Commands echoed across the bridge, lights flashed red, and tension filled the air. Lyra's heart raced. The Dravik had arrived faster than expected. They were huge ships, black and angular, built for destruction. She turned to Elias. Commander, we must retreat. Our ships can't face them. Elias nodded slowly. Then move your civilians first, he said. Evacuate the nearby colonies. I'll stay here, Lyra blinked. Stay, alone? Against 5 Dravik warships? Yes, he said simply, as if it were an everyday task. I need your communications access and the ship's power grid. Her first instinct was to refuse. It sounded like madness, but something in his voice, that steady calmness, made her pause. It was not arrogance or pride. It was certainty. Quiet, strong certainty. She gave him what he asked for. Elias moved with quiet precision. He connected his personal console to the ship's core and began typing codes. The Valari engineers watched in awe as strange human symbols appeared on their screens. What is he doing? One of them whispered. I don't know, Lyra said softly. But whatever it is, he believes in it. Outside, the Dravik ships drew closer. Their weapons glowed like red suns, and the air inside Radiant Song trembled from the power surges of their engines. Every instinct told Lyra to flee, but Elias stood still, calm as stone. Then suddenly the stars changed. Tiny lights flickered across the system, distant satellites, old metal shells that had floated for centuries, unnoticed. Now one by one they began to glow blue. Energy fields formed between them, linking like threads of light. What is that? Lyra breathed. Elias's eyes reflected the glow. Old human defense network, he said softly. Built before the Peace Age, forgotten by most. But we never truly destroy what we might need again. The Dravik fleet fired their first volley. The energy beams struck invisible walls in space and scattered harmlessly. The entire system shimmered with a defensive grid so ancient that even the Dravik scanners didn't recognize it. Elias pressed a few keys. The satellites shifted position, aligning like pieces on a board. We call this the Silent Shield, he said. A system made to protect, not destroy. Lyra could hardly speak. You mean, you humans still kept your weapons? Elias turned to her. Not weapons, memories, we kept them sleeping. Because one day someone might need them. Outside, the stars filled with moving light. Drones awakening, laser grids forming. The Dravik ship slowed, confused. Their signals scattered, jammed by ancient human algorithms. They were still powerful, but for the first time in their long history of conquest, they faced something older and far wiser. Lyra watched in awe. You could have used this to rule the galaxy, she whispered. We could have, Elias said quietly. That's why we didn't. The Dravik, realizing their weapons were useless, began to retreat. The Silent Shield did not chase them. It simply stood. A vast web of light protecting the Valari system. No human ship fired a single shot. No life was lost. When it was over, silence filled the command deck. The Valari officers looked at Elias as if seeing humanity for the first time. Not the gentle dreamers they thought, but something deeper. A people who had known war so terribly that they vowed never to cause it again, yet never forgot how to defend peace. Lyra approached him slowly. Commander, she said, what are you really? Elias looked at the stars. His face was calm, but his eyes were old, older than any man she had met. A reminder, he said softly. That peace must always have someone willing to stand for it. Lyra stared at him, feeling both respect and sadness. She realized that humanity had not forgotten war. They carried it within them like a quiet fire. And though they prayed never to use it again, that fire could still burn if the stars ever called for it. Outside, the light of the Silent Shield slowly faded. The satellites returned to sleep, drifting once more through space like old ghosts. But Lyra knew they were not gone. They were waiting just as humanity was waiting. The Valari people had thought humans weak because they no longer fought. Now she understood. It was not weakness to turn away from war. It was strength. Strength to hold power and choose not to use it. As the radiant song drifted under the calm stars, Lyra whispered to herself, maybe the galaxy was wrong about them. Maybe peace is not the absence of strength, but the control of it. And far across the ship, Commander Elias Vance stood alone at the viewing deck, watching the stars with quiet eyes. He did not smile or speak. He simply stood, as if guarding the memory of something ancient, something the galaxy had forgotten but humanity still remembered. The Valari fleet remained silent for a long time after the Dravik's retreat. The stars were calm again, yet everyone aboard the Radiant Song felt the tension of what they had just witnessed. It was not only fear they felt, it was awe. Commander Elias Vance had stood alone, and with a few silent commands, he had awakened an ancient human defense system that no one in the galaxy even knew still existed. He had not fired a single weapon. He had not raised his voice. And yet an entire enemy fleet had fled. Ambassador Lyra Tavan could not stop thinking about it. She had seen many diplomats, scientists, and leaders, but she had never met anyone like Elias. He was not arrogant or loud, not even proud of what he did. He spoke gently, acted calmly, and seemed almost sorrowful, as if every action he took carried the weight of something lost long ago. The next morning, Lyra found Elias standing alone on the viewing deck, looking out at the distant sun. The soft golden light reflected in his silver eyes. He did not turn when she entered. "You haven't slept," she said softly. "I don't sleep much," he replied quietly. "Too many memories." Lyra stepped beside him. "Memories of war?" Elias nodded. "Of what it does to people. Of what it takes to stop it." Lyra studied him for a moment. "When I asked for help, I expected ships, fleets, maybe weapons." "Not a single man," Elias smiled faintly. "That's what most people expect. But humans learned long ago that wars are not always fought with armies. Sometimes they are stopped by one person willing to stand where others won't." His calm words made Lyra silent. She had read human history once, long ago. Stories of endless wars, civil conflicts, and near extinction. She had admired how humanity rebuilt itself from the ashes, turning toward peace and wisdom. But now she realized that maybe peace had not made them soft. It had made them understand the true meaning of strength. Still, she couldn't understand why he had come alone. "Commander?" she asked. "Why did your people send only you? Surely the Confederacy has soldiers or fleets hidden somewhere." Elias turned toward her. His voice was steady but distant. "Because the moment we send fleets, the war begins. But if we send one, the message is different. It says we are still watching, still remembering, still ready if peace breaks." He looked at the stars again. "One is enough to remind the galaxy that humanity hasn't forgotten how to stand." Lyra fell silent. His words were simple yet heavy. She began to realize that Elias was not there to fight. He was there to warn. Not to threaten others, but to remind them that peace existed only because someone still carried its defense within their heart. The next day, the Radiant Song received new reports. The Dravik hordes were gathering again, this time larger fleets and multiple attack groups. They were angry. The defeat they had suffered from an invisible human system had wounded their pride. Captain Saran, the Valari fleet commander, turned to Lyra in panic. "We must retreat deeper into Dominion space," he said. "The Dravik are coming with full strength. We cannot stand against them." Lyra hesitated. "And what about the human commander?" "He is only one man," Saran said firmly. "He cannot save us twice." But Lyra wasn't so sure. Elias entered the bridge as the officers were discussing evacuation routes. His calm presence silenced everyone. He looked at the star map, where hundreds of red markers represented the Dravik fleets. "They're not attacking just to conquer," Elias said softly. "They want to test us, to see if we truly forgot how to fight." Captain Saran frowned. "And did you? Did humanity forget?" Elias's eyes hardened. "No, we just remembered too well." He began to input coordinates into the navigation console. "Prepare all non-combat ships for evacuation. But keep Radiant Song here." Saran looked shocked. "Here, this is suicide." Lyra placed a hand on the captain's arm. "Wait, let him speak." Elias turned toward them, his voice calm as ever. "The Dravik will come through the Orion Belt. It's narrow. Their numbers won't matter there. I can use the old defense system again, but I'll need to connect this ship's core directly to it." "You mean," Saran said slowly, "use our ship as a control hub?" "Yes," Elias replied. "The Silent Shield was built to protect humanity's colonies, but it can be extended. If I link it through your ship's reactor, it will cover the entire region. You'll have protection. But once it's active, I'll need to stay connected. I can't leave." Lyra's heart tightened. "That means you'll be trapped here if something goes wrong." Elias nodded simply. "If peace is the price, I'll pay it." No one spoke after that. The Valari officers began preparations silently, their movements filled with respect and unease. Even Captain Saran, once doubtful, now followed Elias's orders. As hours passed, the stars outside darkened. The Dravik fleets appeared on long-range scanners on massive burning ships like black storms. The air on the Radiant Song grew heavy. Lyra stayed beside Elias on the bridge. She wanted to say something, anything, to ease the weight on his shoulders. But he stood so calm, so still that words felt unnecessary. Finally, she whispered, "Do you ever fear death, Commander?"
He gave a faint smile.
"Everyone does. But fear isn't the problem. Forgetting why you fight is." Then without another word, he activated the connection. The lights dimmed. A deep hum filled the ship as energy surged through the core. Outside, the old human satellites woke again, spreading across the sky like blue fireflies. The entire Orion Belt shimmered with the faint glow of a massive shield forming between the stars. The Dravik fired their first barrage. Explosions lit up the dark space, but none reached the radiant song. The silent shield absorbed the strikes, its surface rippling like a living wall. Elias's hands moved quickly over the console. He was not shouting, not rushing, just focused. Every motion precise, every command exact. The Valari crew watched him in silence. To them, he looked less like a warrior and more like an artist painting with light and energy. Outside, human defense drones reactivated, their sleek forms gliding through the stars. They formed patterns, trapping the Dravik ships and cutting off their communication. It was not a battle, it was a dance. Every move of the drones came from Elias's command, as if he could see the whole sky inside his mind. Lyra could only whisper, "It's beautiful." Elias didn't look up. "It's terrible," he said softly. "You just don't see the pain it took to learn this beauty." The Dravik fleet fought fiercely, but they were no match for the old human systems. Their ships began to break apart, not from fire, but from confusion. Their own targeting sensors turned against them. Their navigation systems blinded by ancient human codes. When the last Dravik ship fled, limping into hyperspace, silence returned once more. The only sound was the gentle hum of the shield fading away. The bridge was filled with quiet disbelief. The crew slowly turned to Elias, who was still standing at the console, breathing softly. The blue glow of the screens lit his face. He had done it again, saved them without a single drop of blood spilled. Lyra approached him carefully. "Commander, you did it." Elias nodded slightly, but his face showed no joy. "For now," he said. "But they'll come again." "They always do," Lyra frowned. "Why? Why do they fight when they know they'll lose?" Elias looked at her, his expression distant. "Because they've forgotten what losing feels like. That's why humanity remembers, so others won't have to." He disconnected the console and the lights returned to normal. The silent shield began to fade into sleep once again, leaving only peace behind. The Valari officers began cheering quietly, but Lyra didn't join them. She could see something in Elias's eyes, not triumph but loneliness. Later that night, she found him alone again, standing by the window, watching the stars. "You carry it all inside, don't you?" she asked gently. Elias turned his head slightly. "Someone has to," he said softly. "If everyone forgets the cost of peace, someone must remember." Lyra said nothing more. She stood beside him, watching the endless stars, bright, peaceful, and quiet, unaware that their peace existed because of one human who refused to forget war. The news of the second Dravik defeat spread quickly across the galaxy. Every planet, every spaceport, every council chamber whispered about what had happened near the Orion Belt, how a single human, Commander Elias Vance, had stopped an invasion that could have destroyed the Valari Dominion. The stories grew with each telling. Some said he commanded invisible weapons, others claimed he could control the stars themselves. But those who had seen it with their own eyes, like Ambassador Lyra Taven, knew the truth was far simpler and far deeper. Elias Vance was not a magician, not a god. He was a reminder. The Radiant Song was now stationed near the remains of the Dravik ship, scanning the wreckage for clues. Lyra walked along the corridor, feeling the hum of the ship under her feet. The crew still worked with quiet awe whenever Elias passed by. Even Captain Saran, once doubtful, now treated him with silent respect. She found Elias in the control room studying a floating hologram of the battle. His expression was thoughtful but calm. "Are you studying the Dravik tactics?" she asked softly. Elias nodded. "They'll adapt," he said. "They always do. The Dravik are proud. Being defeated twice will only make them angrier." Lyra frowned. "Can we survive another attack?" He looked at her, and though his eyes were calm, there was a shadow behind them. "That depends on how much we're willing to remember." Days passed in uneasy peace. The Valari Council sent messages of thanks, and the Human Confederacy sent quiet approval, but no new ships came. The Radiant Song became a symbol, a lone ship standing between peace and chaos. But for Lyra, peace did not come easily. She often thought about what Elias had said. Peace must have someone willing to stand for it. She began to wonder what it meant to stand. Was it only about courage in danger, or was it about something deeper, something within the heart? Then one night alarms broke the calm again. The Dravik had returned in Broer, and this time not just with ships. They had brought an entire armada. Hundreds of dark vessels filled the sky, surrounding the Valari system like a storm. Their communication signals echoed through the void, sharp and cruel. "They're broadcasting a challenge," said Captain Saran. "They demand surrender of all human and Valari presence in this sector." Lyra turned to Elias. "What do we do?" Elias stared at the screen silently. Then, after a long moment, he said, "Prepare evacuation for all nearby colonies. Move every civilian out of this system." "And you?" Lyra asked. "I stay," Elias said simply. Lyra's voice rose slightly, filled with emotion. "You can't face all that alone. Even the silent shield can't cover this entire area." Elias looked at her with quiet eyes. "Maybe not, but it can buy time." When the evacuation began, the Radiant Song stayed behind as the last ship. The Dravik armada approached like a wall of darkness. Elias worked quickly, connecting the ancient human systems again. But this time the task was harder. The silent shield was old. Its power faded, its satellites scattered across forgotten orbits. Lyra stood beside him. "Can I help?" Elias gave her a small smile. "Stay close, Ambassador. If this fails, you'll need to carry the truth to your people." She frowned. "What truth?" He didn't answer. Instead, he placed his hand on the console and the lights dimmed once more. The ship began to hum with rising energy. Outside, the stars came alive. The human defense satellites glowed once more, their ancient cores awakening like hearts long asleep. Silver drones moved through the darkness, forming patterns, a great web of protection stretching across the sky. Then the Dravik attacked. Their firepower was beyond anything seen before. Streams of red plasma cut across the void, smashing against the human shields. The silent shield shimmered under the impact, bending but not breaking. Elias stood calmly, issuing commands in a voice so steady it seemed to hold the entire crew together. "Redirect Node 7. Channel auxiliary power to the upper grid. Keep the southern line stable." His words were like music, clear, firm, and full of quiet control. Lyra watched in silent awe. Around him, chaos filled the bridge, officers shouting, systems flashing warnings, yet Elias remained the calm center of it all. To her, he looked almost unreal, like a man made of patience and purpose. Hours passed. The Dravik pressed harder. The shield flickered under their endless fire. "Commander," shouted an officer. "The grid is collapsing near Sector 12. Elias's hands moved fast across the console. "Reroute the old orbital generators," he said. "They're unstable." "Then stabilize them." The officer hesitated but obeyed. Sparks flew as energy surged through the systems. The ship trembled violently, but the shield held. Finally, the Dravik ships began to break formation. Their losses were heavy. They had not expected such resistance. Not from one ship, not from one human. But then something new appeared on the sensors, a massive shadow, larger than any ship they had seen before. Lyra's eyes widened. "What is that?" Elias stared at the readings. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Their flagship. It was the Dravik Sovereign, a warship built to destroy planets. Its energy output dwarfed every other vessel." Captain Saran's voice shook. "We can't stop that." Elias didn't answer. He stood still, watching the readings as the massive ship charged its main weapon. The energy levels rose rapidly, enough to burn through the entire shield in one strike. Lyra turned to him. "Elias, what can we do?" For the first time, she saw hesitation in his eyes. "Not fear, but sorrow," he whispered. "There's one thing left." He opened a secure channel and began typing commands into the console, codes so old that even the ship's computer hesitated to recognize them. "What are you activating?" Lyra asked. Elias looked at her quietly. "A system built before peace. A last resort." She felt her throat tighten. "Will it destroy them?" He paused. "It will stop them. That's all that matters." Before she could say more, he pressed the final key. A deep sound filled the ship. Low, powerful, ancient. Outside, the stars flared as the old human satellites linked together into a single chain of light. It was as if the sky itself awoke. Beams of pure white energy shot outward, cutting through the Dravik lines with surgical precision. The enemy ships fell one by one, disabled, not destroyed, but rendered harmless. The flagship tried to fire. but its systems froze under the weight of the human codes infiltrating its network. Then, silence. The Dravik armada stopped moving. Their weapons went dark. Lyra stared in disbelief. "It's over?" Elias nodded slowly. "For now. But the power that saved them came with a cost." The ship's lights flickered. Consoles sparked. The silent shield began to shut down. Exhausted, Lyra saw Elias stumble slightly, his face pale. "Commander!" she cried. He steadied himself. The link was stronger this time. "It takes energy. From everything connected, even me." She helped him sit. "You knew this could happen." "Yes." He gave a faint smile. "But it was worth it." Outside, the last of the Dravik ships drifted powerless. The battle was done. The Valari officers cheered quietly, their relief filling the bridge. But Lyra's eyes stayed on Elias. She realized that humanity's strength was not only in weapons or technology. It was in their will, the unbreakable resolve to protect others even when the cost was great. She spoke softly, almost to herself. "You humans, you never truly forget." Elias smiled weakly. "We can't, because the day we forget, someone else will start it all over again." He looked out the window where the stars shimmered gently once more, and that's what it means to be human. Later, when the Valari reinforcements arrived, they found the Dravik fleet disabled but intact. Every ship spared. Every life preserved. The galaxy would talk for centuries about that battle. They would say it was the moment when humanity showed the stars that peace did not mean weakness, that even the gentlest species could hold fire inside their hearts, if it meant protecting what they loved. And somewhere on the radiant song, Commander Elias Vance rested quietly, his face calm. His duty fulfilled for now, Lyra watched him and whispered, "The flame is still there. Not forgotten, just waiting." The galaxy was watching. News of the Dravik defeat by a single human had spread like wildfire through the Valari Dominion and across neighboring systems. Every council chamber, every trade hub, every academic hall spoke of Commander Elias Vance. A human, alone, calm, and unstoppable, had stopped a fleet of the most feared warriors in known space. For the Valari, it was astonishing. They had long believed humans to be gentle dreamers, peacemakers who had forsaken war entirely. Yet here was proof that humanity's heart still remembered the old ways, the ways of battle, strategy, and sacrifice, though they chose never to wield them unless absolutely necessary. Ambassador Lyra Tavan felt a mixture of pride and worry. Pride, because she had known humans personally and had always admired their quiet strength. Worry, because she could see the cost Elias had paid. His calm demeanor hid more than anyone realized. The man carried centuries of memory, not just of peace but of destruction. The Valari Council convened soon after the battle. It was an emergency session, with delegates from every major system. Lyra sat at the front beside Captain Saran, who still could not quite believe what he had witnessed. "Ambassador Tavan," said the Valari Chancellor, his voice formal but wary, "we are grateful for the assistance of the Human Confederacy. Yet the presence of one human, controlling systems we barely understand, it is unsettling. How much power do your people truly hold?" Lyra looked at Elias, who stood quietly at the side of the room, his silver eyes observing the council with calm patience. "Chancellor," she said carefully, "humanity does not seek power. Commander Vance has shown us not how to conquer, but how to protect. That is all." A counselor spoke up sharply. "But what if this power is misused? What if humanity decides to intervene in every conflict? Are we to become dependent on them?" Lyra shook her head. "No, they intervene only when peace is at risk. Humanity does not start wars. They prevent them." Elias stepped forward, speaking for the first time in the council chamber. His voice was low, steady, and calm, yet it carried the weight of experience. "Peace is not automatic," he said. "Civilizations may grow comfortable believing that war is gone, but forgetting the cost of violence invites it back. Humanity remembers what it has lost so that others may never face the same suffering. That is our duty. Not conquest, not pride, but vigilance." A hush fell over the chamber. Many of the counselors had never heard a human speak in person. Few had realized how deeply humans remembered their own history. After the council session, Lyra walked with Elias along the observation deck, overlooking the Orion Belt. The field of inactive satellites shimmered faintly, a ghostly reminder of the battle that had passed. "You carry so much," Lyra said softly. "The memories of wars your people fought, and the weight of protecting all others. How do you bear it?" Elias looked at her, his eyes reflective. "We do not bear it lightly. Every victory leaves scars even if no one else sees them. Every battle we prevent is a memory of what could have been. We carry those memories so the galaxy does not have to." Lyra nodded slowly. She could see the truth in his words. Humanity's strength was not in weapons or technology. It was in the discipline of remembering, the patience to stand guard silently while others slept safely. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Being the last of your kind, the one who remembers what no one else wants to?" Elias's gaze turned toward the stars. "Regret is for those who fight for personal gain. We fight for others. The cost is simply part of the duty." Days later, the Dravik sent envoys to negotiate a temporary truce. The fleet had been badly damaged and their ships disabled, yet the Sovereign Council of the Dravik still feared humanity. For the first time, the Valari saw the galaxy through Elias's eyes, not as a place of conquest, but as a place where vigilance could prevent chaos. During the negotiations, Lyra noticed something. While the Dravik leaders spoke, Elias stood apart, observing silently. Not once did he raise his voice. Not once did he display threat or anger. Yet his presence alone, the quiet certainty that humanity could and would defend peace, caused the Dravik to pause, reconsider, and compromise. Later, Lyra asked him, "Why don't you fight like they expect you to? Why do you only stand and observe?" Elias looked at her, calm and deliberate. "Because true strength is not about showing power. It is about preventing the need to show it. If they act without reason, then I intervene. But until then, it is enough to remember and to be ready." It was a lesson Lyra would never forget. Humans did not revel in war. They did not seek glory. They simply carried it silently, and only acted when necessary to preserve life. The Valari fleet slowly returned to normal operations, yet the galaxy would not forget the events of the Orion Belt. Reports arrived daily. Scholars wrote about the efficiency of human tactics. Engineers studied the old defense systems, and diplomats reconsidered the nature of interstellar peace. Yet Elias himself withdrew quietly. The man who had become a symbol for many remained alone in the observation deck, keeping watch over the stars. Lyra visited him often, trying to understand the mind that had stopped empires without a single strike. "You carry history within you," she said one day. "Centuries of war, countless lessons. It must be heavy," he nodded. "It is, but it is not mine alone. Humanity teaches all who stand beside it, even if they do not know it. Memories are not burdens when they protect others. They are a shield." Lyra looked out at the vast galaxy. Stars burned brightly, serene and distant. "Do you ever tire of being that shield?" Elias's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "Sometimes. But someone must bear the weight of memory. If we forget, the cost will be paid by others." She stayed silent, realizing that the galaxy had never truly understood humanity. It had only seen the surface, the friendly traders, the peaceful explorers, the diplomats with warm smiles. But beneath all of that was a quiet flame, ancient and enduring, the flame of remembrance that ensured peace could survive. Later, the Valari Council debated whether to deactivate the human defense systems permanently. Some feared the power too much. Others admired it as a tool of survival. Lyra argued for restraint, explaining Elias's philosophy. "Do not fear humanity's strength," she said. "They do not seek conquest. They seek only to remember what it costs to fight, so that others may live in peace. To shut it down is to forget what has been won." Elias, listening silently, gave no comment. He did not need to. His actions and his quiet presence spoke louder than words ever could. That night, as Lyra walked across the quiet observation deck, she watched Elias standing at the viewing port, gazing at distant stars. He had not left. He did not sleep. He merely stood and remembered, carrying the weight of humanity's past and the promise of peace for the future. "You are lonely," she said softly, almost to herself. Elias turned slightly. "Perhaps. But loneliness is better than loss. I have chosen to bear it so others may never know it." She shivered. There was a beauty in his resolve, a purity in his purpose. Humanity had indeed not forgotten war. They had only buried it carefully and quietly, and they had entrusted one of their own to guard it unseen and uncelebrated. Do you ever hope, Lyra asked gently, that the galaxy will remember? He looked at her, his expression calm but firm. The galaxy may forget, but as long as one of us stands, the memory will remain, and the day it is needed again, we will be ready. Lyra watched the stars, feeling the weight of his words. It was not a comfort, but a lesson. Humanity's strength was not measured in victories or in numbers or in technology. It was measured in memory, in patience, and in the unwavering decision to protect others, even at great cost to themselves. And somewhere deep inside her, she knew the galaxy had witnessed something extraordinary. Something that would not fade, even if the memory of Elias faded from history books. He was not a soldier, nor a hero in the way most believed. He was a reminder, a human who remembered, a human who carried the flame of war without letting it burn uncontrolled, a human who ensured that peace could last. The Valari Dominion, the Dravic hordes, and the countless species of the galaxy would all remember the lessons Elias had silently taught them. That strength without memory was dangerous. That power without restraint was destructive, and that peace could endure only if someone remembered the cost of losing it. Lyra Taven stood quietly beside him, watching the stars shimmer. And for the first time she realized the truth. Humanity was not fragile. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was a force born of remembrance, patience, and quiet vigilance, a force the galaxy would never forget again. Peace returned slowly to the Orion Belt and the surrounding systems. The Dravic hordes, battered and cautious, withdrew to their own territory, nursing damaged ships and bruised pride. The Valari Dominion resumed normal operations, though whispers of the human who remembered traveled across the stars. Commander Elias Vance remained on the Radiant Song, as he had for days before. He moved quietly along the corridors, checking systems, monitoring distant sectors, and maintaining the ancient human defense network that slept silently above the belt. No one accompanied him except Ambassador Lyra Taven, who often stayed nearby, both out of respect and curiosity. Lyra had grown to understand what it meant to truly remember as Elias did. Humanity had carried the memory of war not as hatred but as a lesson. Every action he took, every command he gave, every decision to protect life instead of destroying it, was rooted in centuries of understanding. Humanity did not seek conflict, but it never forgot how to defend peace. The Valari Council requested a formal report from Elias. Delegates crowded into the briefing room, hoping to hear strategy, technology, and tactics, but Elias gave them a lesson instead. War is not strength, he said softly, his eyes steady on each counselor. Peace is strength, and peace is fragile. It must be protected not for pride or glory, but because it is worth protecting. Humanity remembers war not to fight it, but to ensure others do not need to. Some counselors looked skeptical, but others nodded. For the first time, the Valari understood what Lyra had long felt. Humanity's true power was in their restraint, wisdom, and memory. Days passed, and Lyra often visited Elias at the observation deck. She watched him study star charts and monitor distant systems. Though no battles raged, he remained vigilant. "You never rest," she said one evening, her voice soft in the quiet of the deck. "I rest when the galaxy is safe," he replied. "And the galaxy is never completely safe." Lyra shook her head. "Surely the Confederacy has others trained like you." "They are fewer than before," Elias admitted. "Most humans choose peace over vigilance. But when the time comes, someone must stand." "I'm the last of my kind for now." Lyra fell silent, feeling the weight of his words. One person. And yet the galaxy had survived because of him. Humanity's memory of war, carried by a single guardian, had protected millions of lives. Weeks later, sensors detected a distant fleet. This time it was not the Dravic. It was an unknown armada, unfamiliar and quiet. Lyra immediately alerted the council. "They come from beyond known space," she said. "We have no records of this civilization." Elias studied the readings carefully. "Unknown fleets are dangerous," he said. "But preparation matters more than fear." The Valari Council debated once again whether to call for human reinforcements. But Elias shook his head. "Do not call. Let me handle this." Lyra hesitated. "But they are unknown." "You cannot possibly face them alone." "I can," he said simply. "Because this is not about fighting. This is about remembering and using what we have learned to prevent conflict before it begins." She realized again that humans did not need to fight to protect peace. Their memory, their vigilance, and their quiet authority were more powerful than any weapon. As the unknown fleet approached, Elias activated the silent shield once more. Ancient satellites and drones stirred in orbit, forming a protective web across the system. The hum of energy filled the corridors of the Radiant Song. Lyra watched from the observation deck as his hands moved across the consoles with calm precision. Every command was measured, every motion purposeful. The unknown fleet came closer, scanning the system, testing defenses. But they did not fire. They hesitate, Lyra said quietly. They've never seen this before. Elias nodded. They are learning. They will soon understand that attacking this system is not worth the cost. And they did. One by one, the unknown ships adjusted their paths, keeping their distance. Sensors indicated they were retreating, avoiding confrontation, as if respecting an invisible authority. Lyra turned to Elias, astonished. You didn't even fight, and yet you stopped them. He smiled faintly. We do not fight to conquer. We fight to protect. Sometimes it is enough to simply be ready. The council convened again after the unknown fleet retreated. This time their discussion was not about fear of humans, but admiration. Lyra spoke on Elias's behalf. Humanity's strength is not measured in ships or weapons. It is measured in memory, in vigilance, and in willingness to carry the burden of protection quietly, without seeking recognition. The Council agreed to leave the human defense systems active. They understood now that the galaxy itself had benefited from a species that remembered what war truly meant. Not as glory, not as power, but as a lesson for all. Months passed. Life returned to a fragile calm. The Volari colonies rebuilt. Trade resumed, and explorers ventured once again into the stars. Yet Elias remained on the Radiant Song, standing guard. Lyra often wondered what he thought about during his long watches. Perhaps he thought of old battles humanity had fought. Lives lost, civilizations changed. Perhaps he thought of peace itself, the fragile gift humanity had won and now preserved for all. One day Lyra asked him softly, "Do you ever hope that others will remember?" Elias turned to her, eyes steady and calm. "They may forget. That is why we must always remember. If one of us stands, the memory remains. And when history calls, we answer." Lyra nodded, understanding at last. Humanity's role was not to dominate, but to guard, not to fight for glory, but to preserve life. The galaxy had once underestimated them. Now it knew the truth. Years later, the story of the Radiant Song and the human commander became legend. The Dravik hordes kept their distance. Unknown civilizations respected the silent shield from afar, and the Volari people told stories of the quiet human who stood alone and reminded the stars of what peace truly meant. But Elias himself remained unseen in history books. He did not seek fame. He did not seek reward. He only stood watching, remembering, and protecting. Lyra often visited the observation deck, now an old woman in silver robes, telling young Volari children about the human who had taught the galaxy a lesson. Peace is not weakness, she said, and strength is not measured by conquest. True strength is in remembering, and standing quietly when no one else can. The children's eyes widened, imagining a single human, calm and unyielding, who could stop empires without firing a weapon. Then, one quiet night, sensors picked up a faint signal. A small, ancient human ship barely visible against the stars entered the system. Its design was old, built for endurance and vigilance. Its insignia glowed softly, a mark known to few, the Guardian's mark. Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine. Though decades had passed, she knew the meaning immediately. From the comms, a familiar, calm voice spoke. Peace must be remembered. Let's make sure history does not repeat itself. The galaxy held its breath, knowing the human who remembered had returned. Humanity had not forgotten war. They had simply waited, carried it quietly, and chosen to stand so that others would not have to. Lyra smiled, tears glimmering in her eyes. For the first time in her long life, she felt the galaxy was truly safe, not because of fleets, not because of treaties, but because humanity remembered, and somewhere among the stars, a single human stood watch once more in the quiet, calm, and ready, a guardian for all. The galaxy had learned the ultimate lesson. Peace was precious, and humanity would protect it no matter the cost, and with that, The story of the human who remembered became legend, carried across generations, never to be forgotten.